Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you. Hey, before we get started, I made you something. It's a quiz that tells you where in your breeding program you should put your focus to make things better for you. Then, inside the outcome email, you can click to start a free mini email course to help you in that specific area of your breeding program. You can take the quiz at honestdogbreeder.com/quiz. Okay, now let's dive into what to do about a defective puppy. It's a beauty and a curse that we work with live animals. On the one hand, wow, is it amazing? New life being created and born. Yet on the other hand, with live animals, there's always the potential for something to be wrong. It isn't always a birth defect, although those happen. Sometimes it's a recessive gene that reared its ugly head, and sometimes it's an injury or an illness. Regardless of why it happened, it happens. So what do we do about it? The puppy still has a life and value, but isn't perfect in the sense of what you usually produce. How do we find the puppy a great home, maintain his value in the eyes of the buyers, and also maintain integrity in our business and its practices? The very first thing we need to do is assess the quality of life of the puppy. How will this issue affect his life long term, if at all? Take the issue and really evaluate the quality of life. Generally, an issue will fall into one of three categories. 1, cosmetic issue not affecting quality of life. 2, an issue requiring surgery or another single event veterinary care item, as in once that item is complete, the dog is good to go. Or 3, it's a lifelong issue, which requires a change of life and maybe unique ownership. 1, is the issue cosmetic? For example, there are some breeds where dogs aren't supposed to have any white on them. Well, what if this puppy has white? This won't affect the quality of life, so it doesn't rate as a super big issue. It might be something to consider with your breeding decisions, depending on your breeding goals, but it isn't exactly a problem for the dog, just the box we try to put dogs into. Sometimes the issue is something that can be solved with a single surgery or veterinary care for a few weeks or months. For example, I had a puppy who broke her leg when she was 3 weeks old. It was a nice clean break. It was set at the vet, healed well, and there was little chance of further complication. So was she destined for long-term problems? Not any more than a little kid who breaks his arm on recess, yet she wasn't perfect as the other puppies. What about if the puppy is missing a leg, or a pair of legs, or he's deaf or blind? These are all major differences in the quality of life for the dog. He will need specific treatment outside of normal dog ownership. There is a whole spectrum of these sort of issues. The harder ones to assess are the ones where the quality of life isn't the same compared with other pups, but that the quality of life isn't specifically affected. For example, say you have a misaligned bite. While it looks funny, this one won't have any effect on his ability to eat or gain nutrition. What about a hernia? Those happen. And if it isn't severe and just looks like an outie belly button, is it a problem? Sometimes the effect on quality of life will be obvious, and sometimes you'll need to get a vet's opinion or you'll need to get a second opinion. I wouldn't hesitate to get a second opinion if the first opinion seems off or extreme. I once had a vet tell one of my buyers that the dog had an issue requiring $2,400 in surgery. My vet told me she usually charged $100 for that when added to a spay or neuter. So there's definitely variability in pricing over stuff like this. Turns out that the dog was eating toxic mushrooms, but hey, we learned a little with that one too. In addition to understanding the impact on quality of life, we also need to figure out what the burden will be on the family who takes the dog on. Will the dog be an emotional burden because he can't live up to their expectations? Will he require special accommodations with lifestyle, such as a deaf dog needing to be trained with hand signals? Will it cost the family money? If the dog will likely need surgery or to be on medication or expensive supplements to maintain quality of life, this needs to be understood as best as possible. Once we know the burden that the dog will be, or not, then we can start to check our best avenues for finding that dog the proper home. Before we look at how to reduce the price or spin the defect in a way that still retains the dog's value, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the buyers to be. What will their impression of this dog be with this defect in comparison to what you normally create with your dogs or with other dogs of the breed? If you sold this dog at full price, would your family feel gypped? If so, then you'll definitely need to reduce the price. For example, I wouldn't expect to pay the same price for a puppy with a broken leg that's healed as I would for a puppy who had never had a fracture. I also wouldn't want to get into a puppy knowing it would need surgery for the same price as a puppy who wouldn't need surgery. Even if the dog will have no issues, just the fact that they aren't without defect at the time I buy the puppy makes me feel taken advantage of paying full price. In essence, as breeders, we need to reduce the price on these dogs to show good faith and integrity with our business practices. This is especially important in dog breeding because all the puppy mills and people's fears of buying a puppy from a puppy mill. Ideally, we want to look at these situations with the best business practices in mind. We want to make money, but we don't want to cheat our buyers. So how do we find the pricing sweet spot with defects? Again, putting ourselves in the shoes of our buyers, what would be a reasonable discount for one of our pups that would justify the burden that the dog is or appears to be because the puppy isn't otherwise perfect? If the dog has a defect, like the previously broken leg but now healed with no foreseeable issues puppy, or a misaligned bite that isn't as pretty but won't cause inability to eat, then I would opt for a 20% discount in price. This seems sizable enough that my expenses are covered, but also makes my buyers feel like they got great value. I always want my buyers to feel like they got great value. If the issue is less severe, like a hernia that just looks like an outie belly button, I would reduce the price less. For example, my vet will fix a simple hernia at spay for $50. I often offer two options to buyers with a hernia like this. One, they can pay full price and they can use my vet for spay and I'll cover the hernia during spay. Or two, I will discount the dog twice the price of what it would cost me to have it done, in this instance $100, and they can take care of it if they like. Now, to clarify, a hernia like this will pose no problem to the dog. It could live with it its whole life, but some buyers don't like it, and they will feel taken advantage of if I didn't address it, or played it down like it was nothing. So these two options are an easy balance. I have never actually paid to have it corrected. My buyers have always opted for the discount on the purchase price. This idea of covering the cost of surgery, with your vet of course, no need for them to go to the most expensive vet just because you said you'd pay for it, or offering to discount by the cost or slightly more than the cost of the surgery, is a simple way to address those simple one-off issues. What if the dog will never be restored to its quote-unquote factory settings? If the quality of life issue will be more severe, then I recommend you take a customized approach in these instances. You have to look at the long-term costs. These aren't always financial, but when they are, it helps to look at them as a gauge for the reduction in price. So for example, if the dog will need $50 per year in supplements, then you might want to reduce his price by half a lifetime cost of those supplements. So reduce him by $300 for the 6 years at $50 per year. If the cost will be lifestyle changes, such as the fact that he's deaf or blind, then you're not only looking for a special home, a home looking to take on a challenge, but you'll also want to reduce his price considerably, at least 50%. Some will argue that giving him away for free would be the most appropriate thing, but I'm not always sold on that idea. You see, people just don't value that which they were given for free. Again, think of the kid in high school whose parents gave him a brand new ride. He's not going to take care of that vehicle the same way that he would if he had to pay for it. Occasionally, in these situations where it is really bad and you essentially have a dog that is a charity case, meaning there is no amount of money that would make it right, then you can opt for an application process where you say, we are looking for the perfect family for this dog. While we aren't charging for him, we are taking applications to find the right home. Whichever home we feel is best for him is the home where we'll have him go. This way people feel they have to earn him, and this can be used to give the dog value in lieu of having them pay for him. This would be ideal for a dog that was born missing a leg. It can even be appropriate for blind or deaf dogs, depending on the type of ideal puppy buyer you are working with. What about when you have a list of buyers who are waiting on a puppy, and in order to get them all puppies, one of them would have to take the defective puppy? In these instances, I like to be as upfront and honest as you can. We aren't downgrading the dog by saying he's lesser, but we aren't hiding it either. We need to take a realistic approach that isn't emotional. You don't want to push people to feel like they need to take a defective puppy because you, the breeder, is emotionally distraught about it. Before you start sorting out the puppies, figure out the appropriate price difference and make the difference in price known, along with the anticipated extra work or burden he might be or not, and then offer him with the other puppies during selection. Make sure to also share with them his personality, temperament, and drive, just like any other puppy. We want to avoid the victim mentality with these puppies. This retains value. Instead of saying he's the broken leg puppy, say he's the green collar puppy. He'll be best for a family with young kids. He's patient and biddable, but also has survived a broken leg. We want to make sure we aren't defining our dogs by their defects. Rather, they're a puppy who also has this in their life or history. Always do your best to treat them as their own life, not as an issue. You remember that whole idea of the problem child? We don't want people to see our pups as that. Oftentimes, people will opt for a defective puppy for the discounted price, especially if it's cosmetic or not something they'll find difficult to manage. Some will get emotionally attached to what they perceive as the underdog. And I have no problem with this. It improves their bond together, and that always works well for both the owner and the dog. As you get toward the end of your list of people getting a puppy in the litter, and the only puppy left is the defective puppy, then try and give the family two options. Offer them that they can take him at the discount, but also offer to have them wait for the next litter, or for a refund if it'll be a long time, like over 8 months, for them to get another dog from you. This way, they'll never feel stuck. You always want them to actively choose their puppy, so we have to provide them options. What about a dog that gets injured or has a defect found after they already have a specific home? This sucks. I'm not going to lie. Making that phone call to tell someone the puppy they selected is now injured or broken is really hard. I know it feels best to call them right away, and truly you shouldn't make them wait, but you don't want to call without information that helps them make the decision. For example, if the dog is injured and the leg seems broken, you can call them, tell them there was an injury, and you'll let them know more after you get done at the vet. If you find the issue and it's more congenital defect, something they were born with and you didn't know about it until later, then you can get the dog into the vet and see the long-term prognosis and options, and then call to let them know. You, again, want to give them two options when discussing this. An option to keep the puppy, what it would look like, and an appropriate discount if there is one, and also what their options are to get a different puppy. If there are more puppies to sell in the litter, you can offer that. But if they'll need to wait for another litter to get a puppy from you, then let them know about the time frame that they're looking at. What if none of the people waiting on this litter want the puppy? If none of them want the puppy, then it's best to advertise the puppy with the defect. I recommend reaching out through social media and your email list if you have one. Of course, the puppy's whole information should be on your website in the for sale section. The idea here is that we aren't asking anyone to take the puppy. Rather, we are advertising the whole situation of the puppy and seeing who wants to step forward and take that puppy. The nice thing is, all that information is up front, so we don't need to disappoint someone who is expecting a flawless puppy. These people are coming to you and they already know the whole story before you talk. Of course, in these situations, it helps to make the story of what happened a little entertaining. For example, my breed of dogs are known for jumping on counters and scaling fences, so, to make it a little funny, I made a joke with my broken leg puppy, calling her Peggy, and saying that she was a new experiment in three-legged dogs to make my buyers' lives easier because of having a dog that couldn't jump fences. This sort of dark humor works for my ideal puppy buyer, but again, this might really piss off your ideal puppy buyer. How do we make adjustments to our breeding program? Whenever things like this happen, we owe it to our program, dogs, and buyers to see about preventing it going forward. Was this injury something we could fix with better facilities? Was this something we could fix with better selection of breeders? Is this always something we'll need to be careful about? Review what happened. I highly recommend using the fancy Army AAR, which is After Action Review, which is a simple 3 questions to review the situation to make it better next time. I made you a quick worksheet to fill out that you can use at honestdogbreeder.com/43. The 3 questions are 1, what are 3 things that went well? 2, what are 3 things that didn't go so well? 3, what are 3 things we could do to make it better next time? It's simple and easy, but that's the beauty of it. It gets your thinking moving forward, and you can use the information to make things better in your program. When in doubt, reduce the price, but don't forget to maintain the value of the puppy. Tell their story, be honest, but keep in the center of your mind that this is a living animal with a right to a high quality of life. I hope these moments are few and far between in your breeding program, but I'd be lying if I said they never happened. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Honest Dog Breeder podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan. I'm so lucky we get to spend this time together. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review. It helps other people find our community of honest dog breeders. Oh, and don't forget to check out the quiz at honestdogbreeder.com/quiz. That way you can start your mini course to help boost your program to the next level. Thank you again, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.